And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at a game called High Rise. This is from Gilhova and from Formal Ferret Games. Now, Formal Ferret Games has not published a lot of games. They've just published a few games, and Gilhova is really trying to, build upon this brand and really promotes his games. The Network's very popular game. High Rise I'd heard about, and I saw it on Kickstarter. It looked like this grandiose game. It's about skyscrapers. Not the first game about skyscrapers, but it is the first game to have pieces that are this big in the game. You're building huge skyscrapers. It looks like a big, heavy Euro-style game. The artwork is absolutely astonishing from Quancha Mariah. I really like how it looks. But I was like, all right, here we go. Let's jump into this game. So let's do it. There's three ways to play the game, or lengths of the game, essentially: the introductory, the standard, and the full game. And the introductory is to teach you, but the difference between the standard and full game is essentially in the standard game you go around the board twice, in the full game you do 3 times. Each player is going to have a mogul piece that starts here. And this game doesn't have turn order. Instead, the players whose mogul piece is farthest in the back goes forward, and you can basically move as far as you want. The only time you have to stop is when you get to this region here. The board is split into different regions. Region, 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 etc. When you go, you can go as far forward as you want, but you cannot stop on another piece. And you can't, if you're in one region, you can't go to another spot in that same region. So you got to decide where you want to go. If you pass, there's going to be a bunch of bonus tiles that are on the board. If you're the first person to pass by those, you can take a group of them. Here I can take essentially 2 random pieces from the bag. Here I can have a random piece pulled from the bag of different materials of different colors. This gives me a wild piece, or this ultra plastic piece here that you can use. So you can grab one of those, and example, in a 4-player game here, only the first 3 people who go by are going to get those, so that might make you move faster. But then again, if you move slower, you might get more things. Most of the time when you land on a space, it's going to give you an action. You can't go to a space unless you're going to take that action. Some actions are these. For example, I can go into the bag full of tiles, that's here, and find a blue material, purple material, black material, and then I can pull one randomly from the bag, but I have to take a corruption. See, this game comes with a corruption board. And you're going to be keeping track of your corruption here. You're also going to be keeping track of your points on here. And corruption can really cause you negative points at the end of the game, as long as you're more corrupt than everyone else. You just keep your corruption down and you'll be okay. There's also other places on the board that you can go here in these different areas. Like, for example, this is East Garden. And when you go to one of these spots, you'll be able to take the action of that spot. And these actions are going to change from game to game. Sometimes, in the case of these, it lets you take a card that you'll be able to use. So, for example, this hint says, take a shipping firm card if available. And that's card 15. So these cards would be laid out near the board. But this just says, after you draw from the bag, draw again. And this means you can use it once per round. So I can take this card, and whenever I want to use it, just flip it over, and it will be replenished on the next turn. There are many different cards that are like that, but there are also cards that say one-time use. So for example, here, if I ever get rid of corruption for some reason, I can draw 2 things from the bag. Now, as the game goes by, companies are going to be building buildings. And if you use an ability that's at someone else's building, they get a free draw from the bag for you using their building. If you're the person who stops there, then you can still draw a building from the bag, a building piece from the bag, but you're going to be the one, you'll take a corruption because you're kind of robbing yourself, or I don't know what the reasoning is exactly, just corrupt. Then you can stop on these spaces to build buildings using all the materials you've been collecting. In each round of the game, you're going to have a blueprint card. So if there's 3 rounds, this is the 2010, this is 2020, and a 2030, and they're going to be different. You'll just randomly draw them from a pile. And these show the possible buildings that you can build. So for example, if I want to build this building here in the middle, I would need to discard a red building material, a gray, and a blue. Although I can discard this ultra plastic as a wild to cover any of those spots. If I do so, I'm going to build a building that's 3 floors high. If I'm the first person each round to do it, I get an extra floor, and this will move on top of that to show that I got that bonus extra floor. These buildings here, the top 2 biggest buildings, also have these ultra plastic, so you can use ultra plastic as the 4th block and the 5th block here, or you can use another building material. I could use 2 blacks, a purple and a red to build this one. However, if you use the ultra plastic in the spot where it says to use it, you get a bonus of 1 floor. So if I go here, use an ultra plastic, black, purple, gray, blue, and I'm the first one to do it, I'm going to be able to build a building on the table that is worth 6, that's 6 height. Now when you build a building, it says you're going to build a building, and I could build it anywhere on the board, but I'm going to take an extra corruption unless it's also in East Gardens on this particular building spot. There's a building spot for most of the areas. So I could build the building, I don't know, I guess I'll build it here. Why not build it there? Because I want to have the tallest building in that area, because that will score me bonus points after each round, and I'm taller than the blue player now. But I also might want to go to the middle one, even though I'll take some corruption in Center City, because, hey, there's bonus tiles here. This one here, for example, gets me 3 victory points. You're going to get a victory point for each floor of the building, but you're also going to want to make the buildings taller. Now, the game comes with buildings that go all the way up to 15 floors, and that's going to be tricky to pull off, because even in the 3rd era, if you're the first person to build this building, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 10 floors if you do everything right. But there are cards and other ways to get bonuses. And in fact, later on, you can buy little pieces to stick on your buildings to make them taller. These go like this. And that's mostly just for purposes of having the majority control in a region. You can even build on top of those, so I can go even higher than that if I want to. So yes, you can build as low as a 2-story building, and you can go extremely high. Now that's pretty much the rules for the game. The game looks a lot more complex than that. But you're going to go around, and there's going to be things happening in between rounds, like corruption evens out a little bit. Players will lose points if you're too far ahead in corruption. You'll unflip your cards and use them again. Each player also has a board, depending on which type of game you're playing, where you're going to be able to store your stuff, and you can't store more, but you can always take more of these areas to store things at the cost of, you guessed it, more corruption. Depending what era you take that in, you're going to get that much corruption as the game goes by. And that's pretty much it. At the end of the game, you're going to lose points for your corruption. Whoever has the most corruption will lose more points. You'll score points for some leftover things that you have, and you can read the rules for all the details on that, and for all the details on what all these different cards and symbols do on the board. But it is pretty basic, and whoever has the most points is the winner. All right, so for components, I like the fact that the back of every blueprint card is a reference card that shows you what most of the major symbols in the game mean. And since you're never going to use every blueprint that's there, because you're using one for each era, everyone can have one of these, and it's pretty simple. Take any 4 you want. If there's a question mark, draw it from the bag. Get an ultra plastic, etc. So I tell you, when I came into this, it was very overwhelming looking. This game looked fairly complex, but it's really not. It's pretty simple. You're just moving around the board and getting the stuff you need to build these really cool towers. I like the tower stands in the towers. They're pretty neat. Each has a name on it. This is Sigco Tower, and they look pretty cool. Now, I don't know what the floors mean. Like, they're not 11 floors, obviously. Maybe it's 110 floors, maybe. But they just look neat on the board. And you don't need to worry about the heights until the end of each round, where the tallest one is going to score and get you victory points in each section of the board. That's one of the main ways to get victory points, having the tallest building total, and then the tallest building in each area. The pieces themselves, the building pieces are fine, they're tiles. There's actually an upgrade if you kickstarted it with wooden pieces and plastic pieces, which I think are pretty cool, but not necessary. And like I said, the card quality is good. The whole thing is a nice quality, well put together game. So first of all, I have to say here that there's a few things that I want to make really clear. First of all, this game is way simpler than I thought it was. Not that it's a simplistic game, but it's not difficult to learn how to play. You're simply moving around the board, picking a spot to go to, and then taking that spot. Now, normally this is not a huge, the number of choices seem overwhelming maybe, but that's only if you're like, I'm going to move halfway across the board. First of all, that's not a great idea, because then you're just going to sit there for a while other people take actions, and the action that far ahead isn't probably that good. If you're in last, you probably want to go to the next section, but where do you go in that section? Do you take the last spot there so you can go first again the next time? But usually the spot that's the farthest in front gives you the best stuff. This mechanism of the person in last moving, and possibly moving multiple times, is one of my favorite mechanisms. So I love that it's in this game. This game twists it a bit by having regions, and you can't stop in the same region twice. Well, usually. There's a few cards that let you stop in the same region twice, and if I see those, I like to grab them because that's pretty cool. The concept of using the fours to build the tall buildings and having the most buildings in areas, that's something we've seen before, but it works well in this game combined with that. And then just the vast array of powers and vast different things that can happen, and high-speed elevators and penthouse suites and things you can build to make your towers even taller. It's that I haven't seen anyone build a 15 tower yet, but the idea that it's possible has me excited. You know, it's neat. And also there's a little bit of in your face to the game, because when you land on someone else's tower, you may have to, you're giving, if you use that ability, you give them a fort, which is a big deal. But also, if an area is completely filled with towers and you want to put one there, you displace the smallest tower built there. And then, of course, you're fighting for dominance in the areas. The second thing I want to push about this game that's a pretty big deal is the standard versus the full game. And I really, and I'm sure some people will disagree with me, I really feel like the standard game is fine. I don't think going around the board 3 times is that much better, and it certainly adds to the length of the game. On the side of the box here, it says 90 to 120 minutes, but if you play the full game there, it's going to be longer than that. It says here 90 to 120 minutes standard, 150 to 190 minutes. I don't want to play this game for 3 hours. It's really fun. But I don't think the third lap adds anything, especially since the third lap isn't an extra lap, it's a prequel lap. It's the 2010 lap. If you play a standard game, you all start with a building on the board, great, and then you just start and play 2020 and then 2030. And my concern with this, yes, you could build up even more. You're not going to have probably just one building. If you go around the board once, you'll probably have 2 or 3 or something. But I don't know that I need that extra playing time. I don't know that this game provides a better experience in 3 hours than it does in 2. Of course, your mileage may vary, but I am strongly of the opinion that the 2-lap game here is the best. It's essentially the full game of some sorts. It's just that you're only going around twice. Other than that, though, love it. There's so much variety in this game, so much. And let me be clear, I really love this game. There's a lot of games I like and I talk about, but this one is one of the best ones I played this year. Now, to be fair, a lot of that is because it combines 2 things I really like. That where the last person in place can move forward and maybe go multiple times, and you have to decide how far forward to go, grabbing those bonus tiles. I love that. And I also love tower building. It's fun. It's visually exciting to see it here. There's that whole fighting for control. And then there's when you build a tower, by putting in a spot, I'm going to try to pick a spot that has a really good thing that people are going to stop by. Because every time they stop there, they're giving me a building material to build more stuff. So just good all around. Don't pass this one by. You may be intimidated with how it looks. I'll be honest, when you see that setup, you're like, whoa. But it is not that complex comparatively. It is an incredible amount of fun. Highly recommend it. High rise. I'm Tom Vasel. We'll see y'all next time. Dice Tower Judgment, excellent.